Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you happenstance in this incredible dialogue with the new Untouchables, this is our 46th recording, and it's getting better and better every week. It seems like the world continues to descend on this circle of elite direction and the ecosystem of truth versus this incredible ocean of madness and lies that we all find ourselves in. And we are recording this on Friday, November 14th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and some introductions are at hand. First, to my left is the proprietor and my longtime friend and colleague, Eric S. Vaughn of Redpoint Digital, a muckraker if there ever was one. So, welcome to the broadcast. Right below him is a wonderful opportunity to really get some insight from Lewis Clark, the executive director of the Government Accountability Project. Thank you so much, Lewis, for again taking your time to join us. Right below me is, of course, the indomitable June Carbone, the Rabina Chair of Law, Science, and Technology at the University of Minnesota. Immediately below her is Paul Peltier, formerly of the Department of Justice and currently adjunct professor at George Washington University. And then, of course, below is a gentleman whose resume and introduction always befuddles me because there's so much to it that it's hard to really keep my mind around all of it. But I will just say this. William K. Black is an expert in all things fraud and all things high-level white-collar corruption that we're all in the midst of. And we've been so fortunate to follow his mentorship, guiding us through these rough, turbulent waters for many years now. So thank you to all for joining us. And like always, I'd like to introduce usually just kind of the headlines as we get rolling through this, just to kind of put some perspective on this. But immediately, the first thing that pops up on the New York Times, of course, is that the government reopens, however, without the data that guides markets and the Fed. That seems like that's flying a 747 into a mountain, and that doesn't sound very positive. Obviously, all things Trump, but the thing that's occupied a lot of our time, of course, is Donald Trump and, of course, all things Epstein. And I think that's where I want to start the conversation, if I may. Although I'm so sorry, I do need to add this, considering, of course, Mr. Peltier and his experience. On the front page, breaking is AIG parts ways with incoming president before he assumes the role. John Neal's withdrawal from the insurer comes as the company grapples with another high profile departure. And it's a little scary because a lot of the folks that I pay attention to online, of course, are talking about a lot of runs in the shadow sector, particularly in AI, a lot of which, of course, I've seen from Michael Burry, the face of The Big Short, that, of course, is saying that AI is fraud in the midst of everything else we're in the midst of. But turning the attention briefly to Epstein and all things Epstein, we had the emails that had come through, of course, the investigation out of Congress because of Jamie Raskin and Thomas Massie that would reveal what was at the Epstein estate. But what it has been in terms of the echo chamber, gentlemen, and everybody on this call, is the idea that DOJ wasn't doing its job. Suddenly, Todd Blanche is behind the eight ball telling the likes of, I'm trying to think of the name of the attorney, of course, whose wife was, it'll come to me in a second, but there's a lot of controversy of just the most simple investigation into emails that didn't happen. So on that note, I think I want to start with you, Paul, and get your reaction because this is definitely your lane.
Well, I guess thanks. And the thing that struck me was a letter that Jamie Raskin had sent to, I believe, the Attorney General. And in that letter, he said that he had understood that the Southern District of New York was conducting a further investigation into Epstein. And when the FBI was scouring through all of the records, supposedly with 1,000 man hours and all that, they learned of this investigation going on in the Southern District of New York, and they shut it down. And he asked for questions about that. So it seems as if the Southern District of New York was doing exactly what Trump has now ordered them to do, although in a very strange way, because he's told them who to investigate. Without any sort of determination that those people may have even committed a crime. And of course, The attorney general responds back, yes, sir, we'll start investigating all these people. And of course, they're all people with Democratic leanings and things like that. And for some reason, in that list of people to investigate, Donald Trump's name was not there. But so I think that it seems from Jamie Raskin's letter that they were indeed conducting a broader financial investigation, and that the attorney general shut it down. And now it seems like they're being told, and again, there was supposed to be a response to that letter on November 10th, and there was no response, as best as I can tell. So it looks as though Epstein is going to be the gift that keeps on giving, at least in terms of people who want some justice for the victims and want to sort of expose all of the people's roles who are criminally culpable. Obviously, the Trump administration is doing it in a complete unconstitutional and ass backwards way. But those are my sort of unique impressions as to just what's happened in the last week in terms of furthering the investigation.
Boy, this next question could go to anybody, but I'm gonna direct this to you, Mr. Black. I was kind of guffaw considering the the sort of magnitude of the revelations of the New York Times approximately a month ago that revealed J.P. Morgan and Chase's financial relationship, of course, all things Epstein. But today, of course, Trump is threatening Jamie Dimon with investigations, in addition to all of the other political sort of hubs in this story. I wonder if you could respond to that. It's kind of an ironic situation.
Sure. So part of this is straight Sherlock Holmes, the dog that didn't bark. Why doesn't a guard dog trained to bark? It's because the trusted person is there, and therefore it doesn't bark. And it's the absence of the barking that is so informative. Prosecutors like to prosecute worthy cases, right? Uh, um, it's what they do. And we have again, not just this administration, but prior administrations. Why did these investigations start so late? Right? And this is the oldest story in history in many ways. What do really, really elite predators want? They want to be wealthy. They want to be famous. They want to be popular. And they want access. They're guys overwhelmingly, and they want access to underage girls. Right? Why didn't this investigation begin early in the Biden administration such that you could actually have a prosecution? Why did so many things begin, if they began at all, so late that they got shut down by the Trump administration? Can you imagine being FBI agents and you're suddenly there's this mad reassignment? Now, this reassignment is insane. The FBI does all kinds of things that are not only important, they're very time sensitive. And to grab allegedly some massive amount of special agents, because all FBI agents are special agents, not just agents, right? And to take them off of literally hundreds of investigations, if these stories are true that the Trump administration is spreading, would be profoundly disruptive to all kinds of top priority matters that could get people killed, right? Or allow people to escape justice entirely. And for what? Because it gets grabbed as soon as the Trump administration comes in, apparently, in terms of not we're looking for references to the president, because if it is, we face the great crisis of the FBI recommending a prosecution of the president of the United States of America, who can't be prosecuted under the standard. What in God's name are we supposed to do? Instead, the FBI is perverted entirely into a cover-up organization. We are to scrub all these things. We are to warn the president and all future Trump administration investigators where not to look. Where not to look because it's a target-rich environment, because it has such important, damning information. And why do these things happen? It is because so many prominent Democrats, as well as so many prominent Republicans, are in those files, right? It's difficult to convey how powerful and important Larry Summers was over the course of the last 30 plus years in the United States of America and overwhelmingly associated with the Democratic Party. And he's not the only Harvard prof involved in this. So again, it is the just absolute corruption of the subclass of the elites in America. And again, what is it that is our only chance of learning about these things? Whistleblowers. So, as a serial whistleblower, as always, thank you, Lewis, Clark. Thank you, GAP, the Government Accountability Project, that has been so critical to our ability to survive in horrific circumstances once you blow the whistle.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I do have, I think an amendment to the comments that have been made or a suggestion. First of all, we should say is that the president should just be quiet about this investigation. The president is obviously tainting whatever investigation might end up happening, just as he's tainted these phony criminal cases that he's bringing against his opponents. The president needs to be out of the justice system altogether, and a special prosecutor needs to be appointed, to take it independent of this Justice Department. I don't think that's likely to happen, but I do think that that needs to happen, and the people whose names are being bandied about or in the files, it should be recognized that they're not guilty until proven so. But they might well have to explain how they happen to be in the files and what they were doing and what's their story. But at least that we need to have an investigation that's not political, an investigation that is, conducted by honorable people who are not being essentially pressured politically from any direction.
Well, I guess I'll ask what I'm sure many people are thinking. How is that possible?
It's not
Okay.
with this current Department of Justice, and not with the leadership that is essentially destroying the department.
Well, I think that would
piece.
Well, sorry to interrupt you. So
No.
it seems that fits in just almost brilliantly and perfectly because, of course, we've been talking about potential whistleblowers and state legislations because of subpoena powers and workarounds because of NDAs and everything else. I don't want to put you on the spot for anything, but if anybody would have access to whistleblowers within the FBI, I would imagine GAP would. So, for instance, hypothetical, what would be the appropriate moves? If I may be so bold to ask, Lewis.
Well, I think the appropriate move would be to have any, hopefully, first of all, whoever is guiding them or representing them should take it to Congress, both the Republicans and to the Democrats, because that's really where the action is going to be. You can't trust the Justice Department, at all. So you really do have to go to Congress with it, and also part of what the members of Congress need to adhere to, which they have, which they traditionally do, put that way, and that is if they need confidentiality, that should be granted and recognized, and upheld. So these people should be able to confidentially, and that's throughout the FBI, go to both the Republicans and the Democrats, so that we have the action, the pressure on that institution to step up and do the kind of overseeing that needs to happen, because it certainly is needed drastically at this time in our history.
Well, thank you for that. And June, I'd like to, and welcome, Mark. Nice to see you.
Hey,
June,
sorry to be late.
no problem. June, I'd like to just kind of tee this up for you real quick, just because obviously you can go in a lot smarter directions than I can teeing up this question, but it is resonating with me because of all of the information that took place as it relates specifically to Michael Wolff's scenarios, because of all of the information that he has. And of course, I know that there's certain scenarios that are suspect, but we also saw this last week. He had this, and he's trying to get out in front of it because, of course, in addition to this is his lawsuit against Melania Trump, which is quite extraordinary, all things considered. But the emails that reflect that he was working coercion, it appears, with Epstein to guide him to say things as point blank as, well, you could give him enough rope basically to hang himself with. I'm paraphrasing, but also you could actually, park this as for, like the way it's done throughout Europe or other countries that I've seen throughout history, quite frankly, is they owe you a favor, right? You send the message to somebody like Trump, you park it, and then he owes you a favor. I wonder if, whatever direction you go, June, but I just wanted to say that out loud because that's obviously what's on the forefront of a lot of people's minds.
Sure. And I don't think we need more whistleblowers right now. We have so much that hasn't been followed up on yet. So I've got my list of questions. First, if you want to put pressure on things, Michael Wolff is the person who has said publicly he has seen pictures of Donald Trump with underage girls in Jeffrey Epstein's hands. Question number one, what happened to those pictures? There ought to be pressure. It is the FBI and the various federal investigations that raided Epstein's files, and there may be videos and there are pictures. Where are the pictures Michael Wolff says he saw? I'd start there. Secondly, we know Epstein is playing, we know a lot of things about Epstein, and we have a lot more that are simply rumored. One is his connections with Mossad. So we know he is involved with Israeli intelligence. We also know British intelligence knows a ton about the Epstein-Trump connections. Here's what is being speculated about today that we don't know very much about. The Russians. Trump's relationship with Epstein is an open secret. Trump has all kinds of ties with Russian money launderers. The deal that supposedly broke up the Epstein-Trump friendship is about purchase of a property to flip. And who's buying it? Apparently, although I don't know if this is known for certain, people with ties to Russia. Now, Hartman, posting today is Vladimir pulling is it not Epstein, but Putin, who's got the dirt on the connection and is pulling the strings? I mean, Trump's relationship with Epstein is an open secret. What Epstein is doing with underage girls is well known for anybody who cared to investigate. What information is Putin using? And, one of the questions I always ask is, Trump is shameless about a lot of things. There are a few things he's terrified of. Epstein seems to be one where he shakes visibly when the issue comes up. Whatever information is out there, I pretty much guarantee you Putin has that information. Is that the real compromise? And how do we know? And then the next is the financial stuff, the list of financial things that have not been investigated. So among the things in the Epstein emails is people ought to be looking into Trump's mortgage in Mar-a-Lago. I haven't seen any discussion of that. Presumably, most of it is a matter of public record. And then finally, these ties. I mean, Epstein's ties involve all kinds of blackmailing. Did he try to blackmail Trump? I mean, Epstein was in jail and killed himself during Trump's first administration. Did he try to approach Trump? It seems extraordinary that he didn't. There are rumors, again, people in prison saying that during the Trump administration, Maxwell tried to approach Trump and let it be known she had dirt on him that she might use to try to get favors. What happened? And, you then get into the entire story. Where did Epstein's fortune come from? How many people was he blackmailing? So the current story, Thomas Massey's, just before we went on air, is that, Trump doesn't want to release the Epstein files because his friends from Palm Beach are in them. But his friends from Palm Beach are likely to be business associates of both his and Epstein's. The financial story, as Paul has long said, follow the money. We don't have a full disclosure of that. And there are a lot of people in New York who could be investigating these things.
Well, Eric, I think that's a perfect setup to you because, first I want to just say publicly, and I'll send this directly to Michael Wolff. We would love to have you on this program and discuss with the most, senior veterans in the United States as it relates to all things financial crimes. You would be amongst the right people to speak to, specifically some of your initiatives. But I want to, just bring this up to you, Eric, based on what June said. First and foremost, we know that the thing that broke up Epstein and Trump supposedly was how Trump stole whatever the address was right down the street in Palm Beach that was brought by some giant billionaire, I think aluminum, oligarch from Russia, and probably a money laundering exercise. And I see Paul shaking his head. Yes. So thank you for that, Paul. And further to that, I mean, my God, the suspicious activity reports, the FinCEN files, these things that we've been tracking on forever that loops back to this statement last night by Todd Blanche of like, don't ask questions to the attorney whose name eludes me. Does anybody want to shout out who's the guy whose wife worked for Trump and then he's like this long-term, go-to guy, and I just right on the tip of my tongue. But the question to you, Eric, is really the questions we had to ask the whole time with the con, right? We were like, wait a second. Once we started getting the information, particularly from Bill, as it related to control fraud, as we were start to dig into liar's loans, as we were able to start digging into the nature of appraisal fraud, as we got into CDO fraud, as we got into the rating agencies fraud, all the way down to the derivatives, did we not start to go, why are we the ones asking these questions? Why are we asking these questions many, many years after the fact? And then, by the way, I interviewed none other than David Enrich, the deputy executive of investigations for the New York Times, who's responsible for the New York Times revealing all there is about JP Morgan Chase and growing with the financial relationship with Epstein. That then David Enrich also wrote the book that was released in 2020 called Shadow Towers, the story of Putin, Deutsche Bank, and Trump. And then, of course, he followed up with most recently Murder of the Truth, which is, of course, how billionaires can use libel laws in their apparatus to bankrupt anybody, whistleblowers, from being able to reveal the truth. What is your assessment of all of these things that we're in the midst of, given where we've come from?
Well, I mean, it's still hard to assess just because it's new things pop up all the time. Like June was talking about how whenever this apparent breakup between Epstein and Trump occurred, but then there was like an email talking about how they had Thanksgiving dinner in 2017. So obviously, whatever kind of a breakup that they had publicly wasn't necessarily the case in private. In which case, that means that that relationship was maintained throughout that time. And I think that that is pretty critical information. And then as far as like, all these stories that are trying to give cover to Trump,
like, oh, he's trying to protect his friends that are in the. It's like, yeah, when has Trump ever in his entire life basically put himself out for anybody else? He has demonstrated time and again that he has the least amount of loyalty to anybody that I've ever seen in the public. Now, one of the things that I feel is really important because I've been I continue to be heavily involved with like a lot of grassroots organizations who are trying to move things politically on both the local and national level, is that it is so incredibly important that this period of time right now, that at least that something gets handled properly, because the amount of cynicism that is out there by the regular people who are just so used to nothing happening despite everything, being out there, and it is so palpable that the expectation is that nothing is going to happen to any of these people. And that needs to not happen. Something significant needs to come out of this in some way, shape, or form, or else that cynicism is going to, I don't know. It's like it's really kind of terrifying to think, just whether it manifests itself in complete inaction on a political level, or if it manifests itself in some other way. But it's so important that something comes from this right now.
Well,
Yeah, I, I, I do have one comment. I beg to differ with June with great respect about we don't need whistleblowers because so much is out there. But that's exactly why we need whistleblowers, because of all the questions that she herself has raised here. Is that we need the whistleblowers, and as to Eric's point about the cynicism, that's exactly why we don't have as many whistleblowers as we need, is because with cynicism you get silence, and so something needs to break that pattern, and part of what needs to break in terms of the pattern is that the American people, and certainly our officials that represent us in Congress, need to figure out a way to finally stand up and take the kind of action that's going to show potential whistleblowers that you're not just walking a plank, whatever that might be, for no reason at all, because it's not going to get anywhere and change isn't going to happen.
Well, I want to just add to that, Lewis, that we at the moment don't have the audience requisite what this expertise on this panel provides. We should literally be showcased to everybody who has interest in the subject, because these are the experts who've already done the work for decades, and they've been, for one reason or another, sidelined or moved on to other things because of just the nature of the ongoing, I would suggest, corruption. I'm not saying that's the causality, but that in terms of everybody's personal careers, I don't want to plant any seeds with that. But the bottom line is that, people, please pay attention to this podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share. We have important people whose eyeballs are on this podcast. We have access to be able to create, really, quite frankly, what nobody else has conjectured, because of the creativity on this panel, and also obviously the years in the trenches of knowing how to play these games. And quite frankly, the way it's been rolled out to us, these guys are so hands and above what the corrupt actors in this administration are, that if we can get the attention, and then of course the hearings under the certain circumstances, will make a lot of information very important to what happens as people ask those questions of cynicism. I want to turn this to you, Mark.
Yeah, but can I follow up for a minute? I just want to be clear on this. I'm saying we don't need more whistleblowers to justify an investigation. We need more whistleblowers to justify public pressure against Trump. I mean, any other political figure with as much as is out there already would have been forced to resign.
Yeah.
And on a final note, the people I have been waiting for are the women. So the person with the most detailed information directly implicating Trump is somebody who filed a complaint against him in 2016 when he was running the first time and withdrew it and disappeared because she was so vilified. She filed it anonymously. She was still getting death threats. Her family was getting death threats. She disappeared. Her attorneys didn't know where to find her. The vilification of anybody who comes forward on this has been extraordinary and should be a story unto itself. And what we have instead is the minimization of the victims, in large part because they can't defend themselves effectively.
Yeah.
And just to add one other thing, yesterday, Megyn Kelly, and I've heard now a number of people say this, she said these weren't really children; these were young teenage girls. And so now that's coming. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. And I've heard other podcasters say this on the right side, say the same thing. It's incredible.
No, it's inevitable. It's absolutely inevitable. It is the standard playbook and has been for thousands of years of men in power. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
Trump has no friends. He has co-conspirators. He is not motivated by friendship. He does not really break up with you. He gets pissed if you get a deal that he wanted. But if you are useful to him, sure, you'll be at a party. But the party isn't because they're friends. The party is because they're mutual predators. And it aids their predation. And these people are so powerful that even when they confess and cut plea deals, they get the most extraordinary provisions. First in the United States, in the old one on Epstein, but now the whistleblowers coming forward are out of the prison where Maxwell is, who are disgusted that in essence she's running the frigging, they're not really club feds, but they're called club feds, right? And that everything is done for her and she can get the guards fired. That's astonishing. And this follows just after they stripped, the royal in the UK and such. It's a big frigging publicity matter, and they're not afraid. Well, they are afraid because they fire these employees, but they're quite willing to do these secret deals so that even prison is no longer prison for these kind of people.
Not secret. They met in the Situation Room. The Attorney General and the head of the FBI met to convince a United States representative not to vote to release the Epstein files. That's extraordinary.
It's what innocent people do, Paul.
Well, I hate to insert, because I love to see this go any direction you folks want to, but I want to bring Mark Dan into the conversation. Mark, welcome back. It's been a couple of weeks, and I know you've been busy, but just to kind of shift gears, and you can obviously go whatever direction you prefer to, but I do want to set up for the audience out there. Again, this is Mark Dan, the former state attorney general of Ohio, that got the only racketeering conviction against something that represented the entire great financial crisis, quite frankly. This is a man who's been in the trenches, done the work for the people. And so he can understand, especially whistleblowers, and how all of these pieces fit and the ridiculous nature of how he might approach it as a prosecutor. But I would like to ask you further to switch gears. You guys, I believe, both current and former state AGs are signing a bipartisan support of Letitia James, I believe, in this other indictment in this runaway Department of Justice weaponization sort of thing. So whatever direction you feel comfortable in guiding.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I believe it's being filed today on behalf of, I think it's something like 89 or 90 former state attorneys general have signed a amicus brief in support of the motion to dismiss Letitia James's indictment. And there's of course there's obviously the politicization of the Justice Department is tragic and troubling for everybody. But the very concept of federalism is at stake at this point. States have protected prerogatives regarding their prosecutions and their ability to enforce the laws of New York, which is what Letitia James did as it related to Donald Trump, and got a jury to agree with her about the claims that the charges that she brought. I mean, setting aside that one or two things might have been reversed on appeal, but the fact is that the chilling effect on state attorneys general, on local prosecutors, that this Letitia James prosecution has. I'm sure, just like the governor of the Federal Reserve Board, probably based on a false premise, is a true threat to our constitutional federalist system of government in this country, where states are empowered to enforce their own laws, where state attorneys general have prerogatives to represent their state. What I'm particularly proud of is how many of my former colleagues who are Republicans who have signed on to onto this brief as well. This is not a Democrat-Republican issue. This is an issue of states' rights in the good sense. Those of us that are old enough to remember the civil rights movement, states' rights had a different ring to it. But the fact is that the idea that independently elected state prosecutors, city or county prosecutors in Ohio or around the country, and independently elected AGs in most states in the country, having the ability to call the balls and strikes as they see them, to prosecute those who commit crimes in their state without fear of retribution from the federal government, and that no one is above the law. It's sad that we have to gather 89 state attorneys general to remind the country of that, and to remind the judge in the Eastern District of Virginia that this is an attack on all of us. It's not just an attack on Letitia James, and we have to remember that. And I think they're teeing up another prosecution effort involving bad mortgage information with a member of Congress as of yesterday. I was in Washington this week, spent some time on Capitol Hill, and I have to tell you, the Epstein stuff is, and I visited a number of Republican congressional offices with other consumer attorneys from around the country, and I can tell you that there's a pall there about the difficult decision that those elected officials have to make. It is, and I got in a few conversations on another separation of powers issue, is why Republican members of Congress aren't as offended as they should be about the prerogatives of Congress that are being preempted by the executive. Why aren't they in there litigating these cases? I mean, the institution itself is under attack. So the concept of a federalist government with empowered state governments is under attack by Trump. The separation of powers between Congress and the executive branch is under probably the greatest attack that it's ever faced since the founding of the republic. And the people, and unlike the AGs, who are defending their institution, who are defending that federalism of both parties, for whatever reason, the leaders I'm too state oriented. The leaders of Congress are not asserting their prerogatives. They're not filing amicus briefs. They're not in court suing in challenging when the Solicitor General weighs in and says that the executive should have unending power to just ignore the voted wishes of the voted edicts of a democratically elected Congress. They should be defending that institution. So, and I think that, and what makes me sad about the Epstein stuff is it's such a sideshow because so many people are suffering. There's so many important issues that we need to address. And honestly, we're not going to win the election over Epstein. Okay, we're going to win the. I think Mikey Sherrill and Paul's new governor in Virginia, Abigail Spangenberg, showed us that you win the and the new mayor of New York all showed us you won the election by talking about what's affecting the lives of people. And honestly, my neighbors don't give a shit about the Epstein files. Okay, but they do care whether their kids are going to get a decent public education, and they do care about whether or not they're going to be able to afford groceries at the grocery store and afford to take a vacation, and whether the value of their house is about to crater because some maniac in the White House is going to tank the economy. So. As interesting as it is, and as fun as it is, because it's a fun story in a very sad way, because it's just so absurd and ridiculous, and the lengths to which Trump is making people go to show their fealty to him. And I don't know. I mean, God, I gotta believe that half of the 435 elected members of the House of Representatives are going to acquiesce to Trump's needs here when their clear duty is so obvious on the Epstein stuff. I mean, I certainly says a lot about their character, but it is keeping us from talking about the stuff that are affecting people's lives, and that worries me. But lost in that is my most important point is when are these institutions going to start defending themselves? States need to defend their prerogatives. Congress needs to defend its prerogatives. The minority members of Congress need to be suing and filing amicus briefs and getting involved in these cases as well. And Lewis has to keep doing his work and making sure that these whistleblowers continue to have some place to come out when they come out and they're facing the scrutiny of the country and the MAGA world, that they can feel safe and their families can feel safe, and we all have to do what we can to make that happen too.
Hey, Mark, a quick follow-up. Did you say out of the 89 that signed on to this that they were all retired, or were there current?
These are former AGs.
Former. Okay. Well,
the one thing when you become Attorney General of a state is that someday you'll be an ex-Attorney General. And so we actually have an organization of ex-attorneys general that's pretty active and pretty engaged in public policy and in philanthropy and is a great wealth of knowledge for current AGs. And we've had a number of initiatives on amicus briefs and so forth. This is by far the most participation in something that is so visibly, has been framed nationally as so visibly partisan. But people who respect the separation of powers between states and the federal government, and the importance of having independent attorneys general, that's not a partisan issue. And these Republicans, I greatly respect. They were willing to sign on to a brief that says that.
Well, Paul, I think this, what Mark just said kind of goes back to the beginning, right? I mean, it just seems like that was part of the initiative of the new Untouchables, as we were starting to brainstorm ideas, or you guys were brainstorming ideas on how to respond to all things that were coming out of the Trump administration. But I want to kind of get your thoughts on this too, as well, Paul. With
by the way, Patrick, the person you were talking about, I don't know where you're going, was George Conway.
Yes.
Yeah.
I apologize. Absolutely, George Conway. I don't know why that hit, because I see him every single day, and I don't know why I was stuck on his name. But thank you for that. But the nature of course, that the billionaire oligarchic class is such a complete chokehold on both parties. I'd say less so on the Democrats, given a lot of stuff that we saw over the course of the last, let's say, the blue wave last Tuesday. But obviously, given the ridiculous nature of Epstein and these things that are taking place, and we're starting to see, of all people, Marjorie Taylor Greene do a little bit of a dance, all things considered. But to Mark's point, and really, just the ridiculous nature of all of this. As ridiculous it is covering up all of these other things that are so important to the American people in context to everything that you guys have rolled out, i.e. tariffs, are corruption as well, right? I'm reminded of what Mark just had prefaced. Have we not also seen just recently from Fannie and I think FHA, whistleblowers discussing some of these maneuvers of what's happening with DOJ by way of what's happening with Letitia James and so forth? Can you comment on all of that?
Well, just a little bit of what I know. It's only what read in the papers, and so apparently what happened as it relates to Letitia James is that they found evidence that this guy Pulte, who's the head of Fannie Freddie, had improperly accessed information that he was using in his quote investigations of Letitia James, and they were doing an internal investigation on that, and they had made either were making or had made a referral to the U.S. Attorney's Office of information they had that was Brady type information that someone would want to have if they were defending the case, the Letitia James case, about improper acts of Pulte. And he fired the whole team. He fired everybody. The IG of Fannie Freddie, Joe Allen's, I've known him for 40 years. He's an absolutely terrific, honorable, ethical person. Gone. They just fired him. And so to that extent, that's another reason why people have no faith in whistleblowing or in the Department of Justice, because of what's happening to these people, right? I do hope, Lewis, that Joe Allen becomes one of your whistleblowers, but because
I do too.
It's incredible as to what's happening. But just going back a little bit, you're talking about the oligarch, or I like to call it the broligarchs in the United States now, and the failure of what Mr. Black said, and that is the FBI and DOJ just fails on and on to go after these wealthy, super wealthy financial fraudsters. And if we look at the emails that we've seen in the past week from, that we've seen in the past week from Epstein, they're talking about the deal that Trump did for the Palm Beach property. And Epstein has always maintained, and Michael Wolff says this, Epstein has always maintained that what broke up their relationship was the fact that he was going to buy this property, and Trump overbid him, bought it, and then immediately sold it to this Russian oligarch who you mentioned called, I think it's like Dmitry Robolev or something like that. But anyway, the point is, what Epstein says is he's buying this stuff and he's got no money. And so it's very clear that there's always been a connection between Trump and Russia and money. He's buying these, during the same period of time, he's buying golf courses all over the world, and he has no money and no cash to buy them. And there's Russians behind all of them. And so the fact that no one's ever investigated the notion that Trump spent on a number of levels, we have Trump University and all that stuff, but where is he getting the money for all of this stuff? And there's almost always a Russian behind it. And had we done it at the time when it was going on, we could have exposed what this, good investigators with grand jury subpoena power can find out a lot, particularly using treaties and things like that. And no one ever did it, despite all of this activity that's now being raised. And I think that makes it makes Bill Black's point exponentially, that now we're seeing emails that actually they're talking about this, and they're talking about the Russians being behind all of this stuff. So anyway, it constantly intrigues me.
Well, can I add an amendment to that? There almost certainly was a national security investigation into Trump that hasn't leaked. When the Mueller report was released, I mean, they kept Mueller from going into the finances, but there was a national security component that was referred to the correct authorities, and we have never known what's happened to that. And my guess is if Jack Smith ever gets to say what he came up with, who knows what he came up with.
Well,
Guys,
they also, part of that was the Paul Manafort Ukrainian Russian oligarch connection, where
Yes.
they all of a sudden overnight the Republican platform changed to remove the restrictions on Russia as it related to Ukraine, and I think that's where the national security investigation went, but we have no idea.
I want to leave it open-ended for anybody to chime in and go any direction you want to for the last 10 minutes of this dialogue.
Yeah, I would just say that I think there are two really major reasons why the Epstein is so important, and one is that it shows these incredible connections of the mega rich folks, being able to essentially allow the molestation and the rape of children. And the second thing is that anyone who's going to end up defending this is going to historically go down as a fairly evil person. And so so looking down the road, I do think that obviously the victims are incredibly important and are incredibly deserving of justice. But I believe that the idea that so many people, including the totally top officials at the FBI and the Department of Justice, are going to have that stain on their history, and I think that this could really break their hold on power, potentially.
Your lips to God's ears.
So I want to pick up on
I'm an
Mark's
optimist here.
point about institutions. Institutions do matter, but ultimately people are decisive.
Yeah.
Right. So the standard saying in my day in the government was where you sit defines where you stand on issues. You would support your institutional structures. You have three veterans of the Justice Department on this talk. I will just speak for myself. It rips my heart out what they've done to the Justice Department and such, because it was such a uniquely valuable reputation. With my whistleblower component, I don't think there's any other country in the world I'd still be alive. Given who, if I had blown the whistle on equivalents in any other country, I think I simply would have been removed from the earth by people that powerful. So America as an institution is something that, again, I cry for in terms of protection. But in the end of the day, if the people are corruptible, the institution will not simply fail. It will turn into a terrible device for destroying everything the institution once stood for. We do not have a Justice Department. We have a Department of Injustice. It is 24/7 committed institutionally to harm and to be non-institutional. They don't represent the United States of America. They represent the interest of Donald Trump. And that is the only way you can get a senior position. And the only way you can get a senior position is if you agree to lie about, for example, the prior election. And even if you get the position, you will lose the position if you refuse to indict whoever they want you to indict, even when it is absolutely unjust and in violation of the rules. And so, in the end of the day, it is this mixture. Yes, we want to build these valuable institutions. We want to restore these institutions, but that is going to be done through people. And that is another reason why the whistleblowers are so critical, because they are the people demonstrating, not saying, demonstrating with their actions that they are willing to put the institution, the people of the United States of America, their own integrity ahead of the demands of their political masters. And that's why it is our unique national resource that no other country has in this kind of abundance. And it really is time to listen to the whistleblowers and to emulate the whistleblowers to show their courage. And I'm speaking to you, leadership of the Democratic Party in Congress.
Oh, and the Republicans. I mean, it's like, certainly, people like Chuck Grassley, has a whole legacy of support for whistleblowing. And then, it's like, what is that legacy going to be right? Is what's going to be done with that legacy if he doesn't step up, as Senate, as head of the Judiciary Committee, and have the kind of investigations that really need to occur.
Yeah, I mean, you throw away, what is it, 4 decades?
Yeah.
At this point?
And I don't think he will, and frankly.
No.
But I'm an optimist.
We'll see.
Does anyone else have any final comments before I try to close this out here? Anyone? Once, twice?
Just a 3 really quick things. I mean, I think that a lot of the peculiarities as to how this Epstein situation has been handled over the years is indicative of the fact that the sexual assault of minors is just the tip of the iceberg. And I think that the connections to powerful people and the movement of finances is probably what is beneath the surface and what the majority of this iceberg actually is. I think that another thing that I find interesting going into the weekend is how freaked out so many people in Wall Street are that Lena Khan is part of Mamdani's transition team. I think it's funny that they freak out over somebody who was simply doing their job when they were at the FTC. So I find that peculiar as well. And then the last thing, which I thought was interesting, is how, let's see, it looks like a judge is going to for the $7 billion settlement for OxyContin and the Sackler family, that the money has to come directly from the family and this, that, and the next thing. It's kind of an interesting thing. $7 billion. I mean, that's a decent amount. I think they made 35 billion off of the sales of OxyContin, but
I think they need to go to jail.
Was that their profit?
I'm not entirely sure.
No, it was way,
Not
way,
even,
way
not
more
even,
than that.
not even close.
Way,
I'm involved with that case, and I can tell you that's not even close. But the fact that that folks are getting something, and
Well,
families are getting something,
are they-
is more than I expected.
Are
Right.
they?
But
Depends
I
on what
also
state you live in.
but also just the very fact that once again it's just settlements and not like criminal convictions is the thing that always bites.
Well,
And that was multi-administration justice departments. I mean, we've talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those those guys killed, literally mass murderers, and have gone it's gone without any
over a million.
Yeah, and now they'll
Yeah.
just be millionaires instead of billionaires. What a shame.
Well,
Yeah,
and the Department of Justice often has tried to make things worse in the settlement, right? Tried to undercut the
Yes.
states deliberately.
Correct.
Right. And let's not forget that they reputation laundered all over everybody who had their hands out in Manhattan with every major known to the world art gallery and everything else that goes with that sort of scenario. People, I think,
we could do a whole show on that, Patrick.
right. Well, and I do want to say to the public here, I mean, just to once again reemphasize who we've got on this incredible panel. Paul Peltier was the focus of Alex Gibney's crime of the century, or he was, definitely a big part of that. And of course, Mark Dan was involved with all this. But I'm gonna close this out here. Going once, going twice on anybody's final thoughts. Anybody? Okay, so here it comes from me. All right. First and foremost, what this is a conduit to. The new Untouchables is a conduit to the most comprehensively, shall we say, veterans of all of these types of cases at the highest levels. And what has been laid out in these discussions week in and week out is that democracy's dead, the law is dead. I mean, we saw, what happened in the blue wave, and there's a lot of threats, and we could talk about the midterms and yada, yada, yada. But the bottom line is this administration is lawless. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. And so how are we going to, see something within, the United States, the people that have been there, done that know how to actually deal with this, given the capitulation of tall building law firms, the capitulation of media, and of course now what has been described as the Department of Injustice. Thank you, William K. Black. We have a strategy. We have access. We know how to Eric and I know how to document this, but these are the people that we all need to pay attention to. So I would please encourage you, please like, subscribe, and share, and check out the newuntouchables.org, and also check out all of the descriptions down below, and I'll have a link to the Government Accountability Project as well. If you're a journalist, please reach out to me. Let's explore relationships, same with podcasters. Let's get this information out to people in as broad a way as we possibly can while we still have time. And I will thank everybody else for their time. And please check out thecleannewdeal.org. And until next time, my name is Patrick Lovell. All the best to you all. Take care.
Thank you.